Welcome to Staffing Stories, hosted by Andy Moss. Andy has been in the staffing industry for over 25 years, first as a recruiter, then eventually an account manager and business owner. This is the podcast where we sit down with fellow staffing owners to get the real stories of the successes, the failures, and the lessons learned along the way.
Welcome back to Staffing Stories. It's Andy Moss, and I'm your host, and we are on episode 28. And it's amazing that we've got this many episodes under our belt, and I'm excited about our next guest, Kara Rogan, CEO of CoWorx. And I'm happy to have you, and welcome aboard for kicking off the first April. And, what a better way to do it.
Thank you for having me, Andy. I'm happy to be here.
Well, Kara, today we're going to talk a little bit about sales, and I'm, fascinated with your background because you have a ton of experience in that. But before we jump into that, kind of introduce yourself to our listeners. I know a lot of people may know you, but just tell us who you are.
Sure. I'm Kara Rogan. I am the CEO at CoWorx Staffing Services and our family of brands. I started my career in 2001 in a sales role. With a Deco Group, and had a great few years there, and have been with CoWorx for 18 years.
Okay. So you were hired in as sales. So did you ever run like a recruiting desk, or did they say, hey, they targeted someone in sales and just got you?
So when I started first in my career, yes, I started in a sales only role, and
Okay.
I did that for a period of time. And then quickly actually got into branch management, where I was overseeing the whole operation. So I was never in a recruiting capacity myself, but very early on in my career was responsible for that.
Okay. That's an interesting twist for some of us in ownership and running businesses like we do. But most models, we hire a recruiter, the recruiter gets promoted into sales, and then sales into management. And I love the fact that an agency said, okay, we need sales. Let's go get a sales professional. Mm-hmm. And that, I guess what Ron said, did that with you, and it's worked out marvelous. I always question myself, should we just get a salesperson, or should we promote a recruiter into a sales role? Because those are two totally different roles.
Well, interestingly, early on in my career, my first staffing job, I had never even heard of a Deco or staffing, or I just needed a job. And I graduated college and didn't want to live with my parents anymore. So I took a sales role. I'd never sold a thing in my life. I was terrified of it. Had some success pretty early on. I was kind of fearless back then. And I think the reason why I ended up then still in a sales capacity, but, overseeing the whole operation, including sales, was because they had a need. And it's one of those tales where someone's doing something well, let's give them more to do, even though they have no real experience in that. So it's, trial by fire, right? So that's how I started.
You learn a lot. You learn a ton that way.
Made a lot of mistakes too.
And I think that's something that we can't overlook. Anytime you move up through an organization, it's okay to make a mistake. You learn that way. I tell my young leaderships, look, there's nothing you can do that we can't overcome as long as it's ethical and morally right. I said, there's nothing we can't fix. So just go out there and, try to conquer the world, but we'll be okay. Because everybody's usually afraid to make some mistakes. It's don't worry about that.
That was probably part of my problem, is I wasn't afraid back then.
That's great.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was the early 2000s, and I had a great time back then.
So what characteristics do you like to see in young professionals in the sales world?
Sure. Well, the first thing we look for when we're hiring for sales, whether they've had experience or not, some positions where we are also okay with bringing in entry-level salespeople, we'll train you, is really about track record and decision making. So, our interview style goes all the way back to, high school. We use top grading, and that's something that we did as an organization years ago, and it has still stuck. Because it's really about decisions you've made in your career, or even before, during your education, and follow through and work ethic. Those are very important to us.
Well, I something that I like to see along with what you just said is confidence, and I talk about that is, you can't be scared, either recruiting or not. Just have some confidence, and I've seen that deteriorate a little bit in some of the college kids coming out, and I'm trying to figure out why that is. But it's a characteristic that I think is very, needed in our industry.
Absolutely, especially in sales.
Yes. So one thing, let's talk about, I love women in leadership, and I know you're passionate about that. And, we just came out of Women's Month, and I would love to know your story, because you have moved up the ranks, guys, girls, anything, just you have worked your way to the top. And I commend you for that, but just kind of tell us a little bit of that story.
Sure. Well, like I said, I was hired at CoWorx almost 18 years ago, and I was overseeing a small area back then. And through the years, had great leadership and opportunity afforded to me. The company was really transforming and growing, and I was fortunate to be here at that time, and also certainly contributing to that. Our areas of responsibility kept growing and growing and growing. Took on more of a corporate role throughout the years as well, and having some oversight over different corporate departments. I've held a lot of roles at CoWorx, but always sales and operations has been at the forefront of what I've had success with. And it is very rare to see someone grow from, where I have been at the company and just overseeing a few branches to eventually becoming the COO and then now the CEO. It's unusual. It's really been an honor. We're a women-owned company, and to have this opportunity afforded to me is really been unbelievable.
So going from COO to CEO, that's I'm gonna say a huge leap, but that is, okay, now you go to the big time. You're now overseeing. How many offices do you all have?
60 locations in the U.S.
60 locations. So
Yes.
That's not a small undertaking. And you had to go through COVID with 60 locations. So, tell me a little bit about that. Because
we had more back then, but we're operating more efficiently today.
Well, that is great. But I'm sure the COVID stories are in your, market of light industrial and stuff like that. I mean, that's probably an amazing story.
Yeah, I mean, going from COO to COO it certainly is a change. There's no question. But I feel like in my old role, I was overseeing, so much of the business already and working so closely with our CEO at that point. And that came through COVID. We worked very closely together. So that relationship was building, for him to trust me, to give me that enhanced, the role of CEO late last year, just came from our performance of how we did through COVID and then beyond. We've had several great years, including 2020. 2020 was a successful year for our company.
Well, that's good. How do you balance family and leadership?
I don't know what the secret is there. I don't have all the answers. I do have some, general rules around my personal time. Unless it's a real emergency, I really allow protected time for myself and for my family, of course. And, I'm at a point where I can do that. So that's wasn't always that way. I also think on the flip side of that we as leaders need to be respectful of our employees' personal time as well. And that's really, ingrained in our culture at our company.
I know some leaders love to email weekends, nights, questions or whatever. And I try to be one of those. I was like, look, I know if I start sending emails, they're going to start thinking, I don't want this. I want them to have that time with their family because I want that time with mine.
Yes, exactly.
I don't want to bother, but business is business. We're always on, especially in our industry.
Yes. Yes.
So our industry, Nat, this is a big question that with 3DIQ, we've tried to tackle is taking a great candidate that maybe your B candidates that you're not placing and placing them in opportunities. Does your organization look at that or grade your candidates to say, okay, I'm taking my top ones to the jobs we have open, but we have a database full of individuals that we don't have a job for, but how are we pro-marketing them? How do you all do that?
Well, that is a challenge for us today, and it's less about where we have opportunities because we have an abundance of opportunities even right now.
Yep.
It's really database management, and how do you keep up and keep those people engaged and continuing to engage with your staff and there's thousands of people in our database that we lose track of. And technology should be able to help us with that. And it does to a degree, but even that has posed some difficulty for us. So that's actually something that we're focusing on this year is making sure that now that, the time after COVID where we had an abundance of opportunities that we're not just, kind of processing everybody and putting them out to work, that we are engaging with our entire database in a meaningful way because there's so much opportunity. And the folks that came in, 6 months ago, they could be at a different point in their life and they could have also gained some more skills where we could now put them at a different opportunity that we may not have been able to in the past.
It's kind of funny, like European staffing markets take great candidates and pro-market them to clients. They don't work off of a job. And then US-based companies do most of their sales off of a job order. And they don't do what you're. So it's like if both of them can, learn from each other, it's just kind of it baffles mine because in my company, I talk to my recruiters all the time. It's like, give me 10 people that you talked to this week that are just great that we don't have a job for because what's the easiest way to get a job order is send them great candidates. So that's, what we try to do. And I know most people like in your leadership are trying to figure that out because we don't put 99% of the people in our database to work. It's just that one position that we're working on that we put
right.
to work. And how can we make that work for us?
I think where we have success with that mostly is in an area of our business where we have great diversity with our customer base. So we've got, many, many clients in different industries, and it allows for us to be able to do that. I think where we struggle is there could be a different geographic area where we have one or two large customers. So you're constantly working on, the same sort of skill set, the same position. And that's where you lose the ability to, sort of skill market people. We do it very well in our more transactional, smaller customer base part of the country.
Well, these are great topics. In your, I guess, role, do you mentor any like up and coming leadership? Do you really, like to do that? Is that something that you focus on?
Yes, within our company and externally. I just got involved with the mentor-mentee program through the ASA. So it's my first year. I have 2 mentees. So that's just started. So it's 3 months in. And then within our own company, we do have a program. We call them coach/mentor. And we've really enhanced that program over the last couple of years. It's been wildly successful to our new hires.
That's one thing that I think gets overlooked. It's not training. It's just you're a mentor. You're just walking alongside someone young in their career and, trying to help them. Okay. When they do make mistakes, it's okay. Or you just guide them. Don't do this because I've done that. And you're going to see this outcome if you do that.
I think people need a safe space too, to be able to have that kind of dialogue that, you're feeling safe admitting that maybe you need help with something or you're nervous or you've made a mistake and need advice. So that in itself is really crucial.
Well, if you can break down the walls, like, look, I'm not the CEO. I'm your mentor here. And if you take that rank off and then they just start talk to you like human, then it's great. But some people can get very intimidated because they're talking to upper leadership. And it's like, look, you need to just look at me as Kara, not, yeah. I mean, I understand what my title is, but just what can I do to answer questions for you?
Yes, definitely. And that's been the way it's been with the ASA. Both of the mentees that I've been working with are not within my organization. They're with other companies. So it takes sort of my title out of it. And we're just two professionals having a conversation. Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I just love to hear your story, and, always in the podcast by asking, okay, if you're streaming Prime, Netflix, Hulu, what's your show?
Well, I actually just finished White Lotus, the second season.
Okay.
That was so phenomenal. I loved it. I kind of go in waves with what I'm watching because I'm one of those people that I can't stop. So it'll be 3:00 in the morning and I'm still watching. So I'm very cautious when I get into a new program. But I am embarrassed to admit as well that I am an absolute Bravo junkie. So I watch all those shows.
Okay. Well, Bravo's a new one. We haven't had that one brought up. So that's
the Bravo network and it's all reality TV. It's terrible, but I love it.
It's okay. It's our secret.
Yeah. Until it isn't our secret.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thanks so much for being on, and you're doing an awesome job, and
thank you for having me.
Encourage you to keep doing it. Blaze that path.
Thank you, Andy. It was a pleasure.
All right.
The Staffing Stories podcast is brought to you by 3DIQ. Founded by recruiters for recruiters, 3DIQ's industry-leading product suite complements your submission process in Bullhorn from start to finish and helps you deliver a cutting-edge customer experience. Triple your placements with our powerful resume submission platform, candidate marketing, and client portal. Visit 3diq.com/stories to learn more.